All right, g'day, Nabocastarians. Welcome to what's going to be the last of these Jetstream AMA videos for a little while. We're kicking back into the season next week, and we've managed to fill some time over the last couple of months to keep everybody's Jets juices flowing and kicking over. And we're going to end this the same way we started it, but hopefully with a much better video. we had problems we didn't know about until after the recording finished with echoing and everything else going on. But it's a big welcome back to Jet CEO Lawrie McKinna. Lawrie, thanks for joining us again.
Good afternoon, Grant. How you doing?
No, good, mate. Good, and happy birthday for Wednesday. How did the birthday go down? A couple of shandies go down afterwards. The photo with the little cupcake in the office and everything. But how did the birthday go?
No shandies. Had the grandkids up, so it was had lasagna because that's what they wanted. Everything that they wanted, they got, and that was basically second fiddle. So it's just normal, just a normal day.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, like we said, since we've last spoke, obviously a lot more certainty with everything going on. A lot more news has come out. We'll get to a couple of the relevant items of news in just a little bit. But Lawrie, just sort of take us through the last couple of months since we last spoke with, the Jet staff being stood down and the players not sort of knowing what's been going on. How's the communication been between then and now, and what sort of position are the Jets in at the moment to now that the season's only a week away from resuming?
Our communication with the players was probably one of the better ones, I would say. We had no issue with any communication. We were always up front what was going to happen with the JobKeeper. Boys have been on JobKeeper. Some of the clubs topped up some players we couldn't afford to, but no players came to us. So credit to the players. They've done the right thing, same as the staff. We've still got staff. We've got a few staff on 2 days a week, some on 3, some on 4. The football staff are back full time now. Yep. The academy staff's back full time because that side of the business is up and going now. So, credit to everybody for just mucking in and doing what was needed to do, and we were having Zoom meetings every couple of days with the staff because we're all working from home for such a long time. And you could just feel the mood. At the beginning, it was all new and it was all fresh. But by the end of it, it was a drag, And then we were back in the office 4 days a week. So we're splitting who was working in the office. But as soon as the team came back a few weeks ago, we had to make that bubble. So you're either in the bubble or you're out the bubble. Yep. So most of the admin staff now, apart from Declan and myself, are in the bubble. So we are in and out of the office with the squad. And the players aren't allowed in the office, but the staff are coming back and forward. So we're in there, and staff do come in the office when there are no football staff in there. So we've tried to keep it really separate, and that's worked. Players have been great. Deansy and Daniel McBreen took training for the first few weeks because obviously we were waiting on Kenny coming, Carol coming, and Dan Beasley, our other new assistant. Darren got out of prison on Tuesday night, so he got picked up on Tuesday because he'd arrived in first. And the reason we were a wee bit later with the coaches arriving here was we tried to wait for their families to get in. So Carol wanted to bring his son, and Kenny wanted to bring his wife and the 2 kids. And FFA and Border Force had been working together, and we tried and we hung on, but we couldn't hang on anymore. Yeah. So Carol got out at midnight on Friday night, so he was at training yesterday for the first time. A very happy man to get fresh air. And Kenny got out on Thursday night at midnight, and he was like a kid in a candy shop on Friday at training. He was buzzing. And Darren's been there from Wednesday. So, it's good to have them all back, and they're all buzzing, and the tempo training has been really good. Lockie Jackson's doing well for his injury. Canta had re-injured himself a wee bit, so he's not training full. But everybody else is full training, and the tempo's been great. The mood's been great, and it picked up another notch Friday when Kenny and Joe Ledley turned up, and then Carol turned up yesterday, and the boys were buzzing.
What sort of extra planning has had to go into to make sure that are you still trying to keep the players sort of separate from social situations? How much extra sort of work has had to go into keeping social distancing when training and team meetings and all that sort of thing? What sort of extra precautions has the club had to do to keep those coronavirus post-pandemic sort of stuff, keep all those sort of restrictions around and making sure we limit any sort of possibility of any sort of reinfections or community transmission taking place amongst the club?
So the club had to submit their COVID proposal to FFA and the university, because obviously we have to go along with theirs. We've got double bubble because we have to fit in within the uni and fit in within ours. But
yep.
ours was one of the best ones submitted, and that feedback came back for FFA. So Nathan, Bryce, Nicky in the office done a fantastic job. So the boys come dressed. They don't come. They don't get changed at training now. They don't have showers because that was all part of it. So they just come in the car and then jump back in the car and off they go. They all come at staggered times. They've all got set times to come in. They get their temperature checked every day. They all got COVID tests. Everybody in the bubble got COVID tests right at the beginning. And before we started training, everybody had to be clear. And the boys, we've got a friendly game with Wanderers on Wednesday. And on Thursday, the boys get the COVID tests so that they can start the season. So that will be on Thursday. And you need to give, I think, 48 to 72 hours. But it usually comes back within a day.
Yep.
To start that first game. So all that stuff's all in place now. They don't go up into the kitchen. They don't go up, make their toast and any of that routine that was before. They keep out of there. They've not really had any team meetings as such because Carol's not been here. It's just been basically training and gone. For the gym, we've been using the concept gym, who have been different class. When all the boys went into stood down, because the gym wasn't on, they gave them all the exercise bikes. So the boys, we deliver all the exercise bikes, or the staff did. And we're now using, they've got an outside area, which is outside the gym. So our boys are actually using that just now themselves. So we're keeping them as isolated as possible. Obviously, we've had games and you're allowed to have contact training now. So the boys have been kicking for the last few weeks.
Yeah, is there going to be ongoing testing going forward? Are they going to have to go through another round of testing after each game? How's the ongoing process going to happen?
No, they'll just be getting checked daily with the temperatures and that. And if anybody's get any signs at all, they have to go and see the doc straight away. So, and we're all pretty strict on that. The boys every day we've all got an app, and every morning at 8 o'clock you get a reminder that you've not done it on your phone. Mm-hmm. And it's just an easy online one. It's just all the basics. Do you have a temperature? Have you got a sore throat? Have you been with anybody with the virus? So it's really, really thorough. And there's certain, bringing players in has been difficult because they've not been in the bubble. So you need to do a manual process, 14 days. For the last 14 days, they have to fill in the forms. Have they been in places where they've been COVID, met people? And then the doctor has to give a medical, they have to get a COVID test, and then they're allowed to come into training. So it's quite a complex thing.
Something that's not Jet specific, but obviously something you've had some contact with. We were just speaking before we started recording. Just sort of have a chat, a quick talk about what happened with the with the Melbourne teams trying to get out of Victoria and what sort of. Obviously, the league's starting this week, but they're going to have to be in quarantine for 14 days. So what sort of cat is that thrown in amongst the pigeons? And just sort of what sort of contact did you have with the FFA with regards to trying to help getting the Victorian teams out?
Yeah, look, FFA got told on Monday morning at 10 o'clock that the borders were going to close Tuesday night at midnight. And then, so they were planning they've only got 5 or 6 staff in there because most of the staff are stood down, so it's skeleton staff. They then planned to get them out the next morning at 9:30, which was all booked. And then at 7 o'clock that night, they got the phone call for the government or the health department to say, I think it was Melbournians had to be out by midnight on Monday. Mm. So then I got a phone call at 10:15 to see if I could contact somebody at Newcastle Airport to so they could fly the charter flight in to Newcastle. But I got Peter Cock, the CEO, who was fantastic. I think he was sleeping. He took the call, and then he went away and tried to do it. And then he suggested Canberra, but FFA were aware of Canberra was 24 hours, and it was too hard for Newcastle. And then they were all on the plane going to go to Canberra, and the fog came in, and Canberra Airport got closed, so they couldn't take off. So then they were meant to go the next day, and then that's when the ACT, I think, head medical officer never signed off, but the paperwork was already on government's desk. It just never got signed. So then the ACT government said, if you come in here, it's 14 days quarantine, but no training. So that's why they couldn't go there.
Yeah. So
now the week's happened. They arrived yesterday. They are staying near Partlea, near New South Wales soccer headquarters. The 3 teams will train there. They've stopped all friendly games because there were a couple of friendly games booked. So everybody's been cleared from Valentine Park. They're staying in Norwest, and they've got the full hotel to themselves, the 3 teams. They've got security, and they've got police escorts to and from training, which is only really 5 minutes away, but it's very, very strict. And so the draw will be changed slightly tomorrow. We'll get the updated draw, but it will not affect us because we're not supposed to play Western United until about the second last game. But
yeah,
they've got 6 games, so it will affect how their preparation is going to be as well. So so it's not been ideal this week, but there were reasons behind what happened, and I know a lot of people were quick to jump on FFA, but in my opinion, FFA, when you know the facts, FFA has done a great job under difficult circumstances because, as we all know at the moment, our game hasn't got millions and millions of dollars in the bank that it can just chuck teams in 2 or 3 weeks ago. Another thing was, when it was going to be a hub in Sydney originally, a lot of the Melbourne teams started getting medical advice. They were better off playing some games in Melbourne before and maybe flying in and flying out. So that's why everything, the picture was changing every day.
Yeah, and that whole Melbourne sort of second wave thing cropped up really quickly. It just it did a couple of days, and then it had ramped up and everything. They went back into a second lockdown. So yeah, it's been disappointing, I think, to see some of the media reports slamming the A-League and the FFA in particular. It's obviously not been much we've seen sort of from local media. My local media has been really good with the support and keeping the Jets in the local eyes, but it's sort of been, I mean, just from my perspective, I think it's been a little bit disappointing seeing some of the comments on social media and from media publications about, you know, the FFA and teams having to respond to a quickly evolving situation. And there's only so much you can do when edicts are being handed down from government. You've got to jump through their hoops. It's not the other way around.
Okay, no say.
All right. So one of the other interesting articles and one that's propped up really in the last couple of weeks, and there was one that obviously popped up last night with specifics to the Jets, has been the ownership. Can you sort of speak, first off, I suppose, how's Martin Lee going over in China? Obviously, he's in a situation not of his own making, and that's why he's having to see if he can sell the club. So how's he going? How's the discussion, and what sort of details can you give us? Obviously, there's a lot of commercial in confidence, and also just speak about the article that came out last night on the World Game website with regards to sources within the FFA talking about maybe taking the license off Martin Lee due to that old chestnut of non-fulfillment of financial obligations.
Yeah, well, Martin's business, he's going along all right. You know, he taken a hit through COVID, like everybody's took the hit. he took the big hit like a year and 3/4 ago with the tariffs. So he's worked his way through that. Then COVID came. So his business is going okay. The legalities of getting money out of China for a sports team is the problem. Yep. And to be fair, I think he's clocked off. You know, it's all too hard.
Yeah.
So that's why I've actively been talking to many people, and I've spoke to many people over. Well, it was in the same article for yesterday was basically a rehash of the one a couple of weeks before it, and you know, we'd been offered $12 million, they knocked it back, and this has gone back more than a year ago. And obviously now you're trying to sell a club in the middle of a pandemic, which is not easy. So there's an interested guy that we've been dealing with in Sydney, and this has been going on for a while, and it's getting closer, but it's not done yet. And obviously, when I got the phone call yesterday for the journalist, and I can't comment what FFA are saying within closed doors. Yeah, do I keep them up to speed? Yep, that's why on Monday was, and that's why I'll be speaking to Gregor Ott tomorrow. I give him an update. I'm speaking to Martin Lee on Zoom tomorrow afternoon at 4:00ish. And and we've not hidden yet. Financially, we're struggling. And but we're actively trying to sell it. It came up in the article a few weeks ago about moving the license, and I've been asked to move the license. Whether we move it, I think probably 3 times, and the answer is no. There's no way, as long as I'm at the club and making decisions, that we'd be moving the license away to somewhere else.
Is that also an undertaking from the FFA that the license will remain in Newcastle?
No, technically, if the license was taken off Martin, FFA could do what they wanted with it. No, they won't. No, but FFA want Newcastle as part of the A League. It's an important part of the cog in the wheels for them. So that's what the article was about. So it's a bit of a rehash, but that was new about what's coming at FFA, and I can't comment on that because somebody obviously high up at FFA said it to somebody, and obviously they don't know. When I asked, who was it, and they never gave me any. But I speak to Gregor Ott 2 or 3 times a week about it and where we're going. And we paid, all the boys are paid up in full. Their supers all paid. Their wages are all paid. And so we're taking, and we were one of the first clubs to actually give our foreign players JobKeeper. So we've paid our foreign players JobKeeper all the way through, and we're continuing to do that, and we're even paying them JobKeeper now. And the top up, we're paying them that allocation from what the agreed payment would be. Yep. And we could say we're not paying it, and the PFA had agreed to pay all the foreign players, but now we've still done the right thing and we've paid it. So we've done the right thing all the way through.
What sort of
and that comes back to communication with the players as well.
Yeah, which has been top notch by the sounds of it. So what's the current state of play with the interested party you're dealing with? What sort of time frame are we looking as to whether?
So the legal stuff, the term sheets back and forth to lawyers. So the lawyers are talking. So it's not far, in my opinion. But things change so quick. But then things slow up so quick as well. So it's at that thing, you can feel it and you can touch it, but it's just not there. So it's close, and if it happens, I think it'll be good for the club. It's a football guy. It's not going to be a thing on his mantelpiece just as a trophy. It'll be, he'll want to be part of it.
Yeah.
And invest in the club, because it's going to be the next year. Is going to be so hard for all the clubs, because we don't know what the collective bargaining agreement is going to be, because that's still to be negotiated. We know we're going to start in December and go through to July, so that's going to be interesting. We don't know what the salary cap is going to be yet, so we don't know if there's going to be a cut. We don't know what that means with players who are on long-term contracts. So there are a lot of things up in the air at the moment. So I think next year will be a hard year.
Yep.
But then there'll be light at the end of the tunnel, because there's a lot of positive things happening behind the scenes which will affect the league down the track, which is really positive.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously a couple of people put the put the ownership forward as one of their topics of discussion. So thanks for everybody that submitted that question. Franco Romani on the Facebook also asked, basically said, I feel having long-term ownership of the Jets is crucial to our club's success. Do you believe this current option, the current possible buyer of the Jets is going to be a long-term owner of the club? And do you believe that this new owner could invest the appropriate amount of capital to build a strong winning culture at Newcastle? What sort of, maybe, obviously you can't go into names and all that sort of thing, but what sort of background around the new potential owner is there, and how serious is he going to take his investment?
Now he's going to take it serious. As I said, he's a football guy, so he's a supporter. Not a Jet supporter, he will be a Jet supporter, but he's a football supporter. A big thing, I know a lot of fans, and I see it in a comment on Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that, oh yeah, we need to invest more money. Yeah, well that's right. But we can actually all go off our arses and pay and go and buy a ticket and go to the game and help as well. It's, if just say Martin Lee pulled the pin and FFA turned the licence back, that's 3 times that's happened at the club.
Yeah.
So is that telling you something? Is that telling you we get 19,000 to Melbourne City semi-final, we get 30,000 final? Yeah, but where's, and I know they've been starved of success and stuff like that since the grand final when he's beat the Mariners, but, maybe instead of just blaming everybody else, we actually look at ourselves and say, because I know this guy, he's got a lot of ideas to actually engage members and stuff like that. Really exciting stuff. He'd be the first club in the country to do some of his ideas. But it's not just necessarily the owner's job, it's supporters to support your club.
How difficult is it to get interest from... Obviously, the issue with the Jets has been basically these single owner entities that are, if that owner falls on financial hardships, then that affects the club. How difficult is it to try and get interest from a range of people so that they're spreading the debt load across a number of people, like consortiums like Wellnix and those sorts of setups? How hard is it? Obviously, you've been shopping the club around. How hard has it been trying to drum up interest from those sorts of business corporates?
It's there. They've been there. They've definitely been consortiums interested, and it makes sense when you're dealing with, because anybody who's interested in a club, they've obviously got money, and anybody who's going to buy a club at the moment has got money to lose. So if you can share that load round about, fantastic. So they've definitely been consortiums, but finding. We were very close to a sale just before the pandemic. And then obviously the world changed.
Yeah.
And it's probably unfortunate for Martin Lee again that he's not going to get as much as what he would have got going back then. So you can't be too choosy who's going to buy a football club. It's just what comes up. But there have definitely been consortiums come up. And maybe when a new owner does come in, he might be open, right, to bring in other partners, because their business associates. This guy spoke about that. He's got business interests with people, overseas people who are interested in football. So he's been talking to them, whether they come in as a sponsor. Another thing, the reason we struggle, being in the regional area, although we're one of the major cities in Australia, it's what we can get for our sponsorship dollars is a lot less than what you get in the major cities, and that's a big problem. And then we've got a few our major sponsors who probably could be missing for next year because of how they've been affected by the virus as well, and that puts you behind the 8 ball straight away again. So it's going to be very hard next season.
Okay. Just moving on to some other things now. Lucas on Twitter asked you a question that you answered, but we'll go through it for the people that haven't seen it. He said, "I hope you're doing well." He's not sure when the Viva kit deal runs out, but are there plans to renew the deal with them or look elsewhere? I think their kits have been great for the Jets, although I do think we would sell more and have more global exposure with a bigger brand. So, what's the current state of play with Viva, and how happy have we been with the deal?
Now we've been, because they pay us a fair bit of cash and we get a fair bit of gear. And the gear has been, the first year we had a few wee issues, but a lot of that was our fault because it was late notice. They've re-signed for another 3 years. They're very, very happy with the exposure and what they get for the Jets. And we're very happy with them. And Lucas is right. If you've got a Puma, Adidas, Nike, and all these guys, but I think Nike are allowed. They've got, who have they got? Who's Nike with in the league? Sydney's Adidas. A few of them just changed. No.
Wanderers, I think.
Sydney have just, yes, they're one. So a lot of them have they've got a policy with the one team. Yeah. Puma approached us, and but then they couldn't match the Viva deal.
Yep.
So it comes down to because technically Viva would be probably our biggest sponsor, as if you put all the contra and the cash in.
Yeah.
And they've been great. And the new strips for next year, I think fans will be quite happy about some of the Viva came back. They got a lot of stuff from consultants in Europe of what the trends were in Europe, and there could be a wee bit of historical stuff chucked back in there as well. So you just never know. You might see a wee bit of gold. You might even see a white and cinnamon and green. And even though I'm hearing my Rangers strip on, it just shows I'm not buying. You just don't know what's going to pop up for next year.
Good stuff. And what's obviously with the pandemic, what's the timeline for the new kits coming out?
Well, we were running a bit late because the designs went back and forward, but now because the season's been put back, all the final paperwork's all been signed, all agreed. So I would say I'd be reckoning around about October time.
Yep.
October time-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the current state of play with selling of Jets merchandise? Has the Jets got the online store and everything sorted yet?
No,
is there going to be a retail presence? What's
It will be, and Viva are actually looking to do a joint thing with the club, so they'd have a presence in the town and then at match day. So that's something that we're working on. Viva have got an online one, but our one was meant to be done through Ticketek because it was actually told about us through the week. So there were access in it, but it's not happened yet.
Yep. Okay.
So just come through the office.
So is that going to be a standalone Viva store, or are you looking at going through Rebel or Everything Football, or what?
No, they'll be Everything Football's gone, but I think they're just doing it out of van. No, Rebel will still have it, but looking to have a retail outlet that would be a joint thing between Viva and the Jets.
Okay. With the new deals and everything that's come around with response to the pandemic and realigning the season from December to July, what are your thoughts behind the switch from moving to summer to primarily winter? And how happy and obviously it's not great to lose money, but the new broadcast deal with Fox Sports, how's that going to affect what we're going to be able to do going forwards with regards to the grants that we get from the FFA?
Yes, so the grant, FFAs, the A-League clubs will get less money. Well, we think, we don't know, but we think because the deal's been cut. But it's great. The important thing was that next season, because of the turnaround, that we had a TV deal, the game's on TV. So I think it's been a good outcome by FFA, and I think James Johnson done a great job. There are because the Fox deal in the past was so tied up, everybody said, just go out and get a new broadcaster. Well, you can't get a new broadcaster when you're under contract with somebody, because then it gives them the option they can just rip up the contract and walk away. So it gives everybody a platform now to go out and actually sell the game and maybe look at doing it ourselves. The A-League clubs, the independence will happen probably by the end of the year, and maybe the A-League clubs do a white label of the A-League and then on-sell it. So there are a lot of possibilities. The big important thing was that we still had a presence for W-League, A-League on TV and still on ABC for the next season. So that's great. That's locked away. It's great we've got the games I think they're going to be just about every night. There's going to be a game on, which is going to be good just to get back to our football as well. So it was really important for that current TV deal. So the landscape of how the game's going to be seen over the next few years could totally change in Australia, which is an exciting time for the game now. Because in the past, a lot of time, people used to complain about kick-off times and this and that. And that was all dictated by Fox, because Fox had so much power within the deal. So it's not going to be quite the same as that all change.
And obviously with the money coming from Fox is going to be less. Is that going to change the salary cap?
Yeah, well, it could. That's the stuff that we don't know about, because we don't know the budget for next year yet.
Yep.
It's not been sorted yet. So the collective bargain agreement so it was done for this short season. Now it has to be done for the next year. So that will hopefully be over the next few weeks to a month to get sorted, and then that way you can start knowing what your budget's going to be.
So the A-League seasons, like we mentioned before, is going to be from December to July. What are your thoughts on behind the switch? And is that looking like it's going to be an ongoing thing, or is there going to be see how it goes for this upcoming season and then see if we go back to the original summer season or continue with the winter season? What are your thoughts behind it, and where could it possibly go from after next season?
So the winter thing, December's definitely no winter. So you're going to have your three hot months, and then we're going to line up more with the kids. So the thought behind it is the 1.9 million players in Australia play between March and September. So we're going to have a larger chunk of that where you can actually communicate with the players as they're playing. So I think that could be a positive. I think with the World Cup coming up the year after, I think maybe next year the league will go back. And it's not been concrete. They've got a lot on the plate now, but it could maybe go back again, maybe so you're not having a break for the World Cup.
Yeah.
So I think they're looking at this as a chance. So you look at games, if you're a punter and you watch the A-League, if you're looking at a game on a Friday night, 8 o'clock kickoff, compared to a Sunday afternoon 5 o'clock kickoff when the sun's beating down on the Eastern Grandstand and there's hardly anybody in that side because of the sun, the games are totally different tempos. You watch a game on your Friday night and it's maybe early 20s, you've got a good tempo game. And then, because speaking to Joe Ledley when he's here, Joe never watched a lot of the A-League, but when he got here, he was actually so surprised how good the standard was, because he's actually playing in the conditions that we're playing in. When you're watching a game on the other side of the world, you don't look and go, "Ah, shit, it looks like 34 degrees today." It's just a game.
Yeah.
So I think the standard I think the tempo of the game could get better, because the players and our boys are fit. Australian players are very, very fit. But it's very hard when you're playing in over 30 degrees, humidity and stuff. So I think it could be a positive thing for the standard of the game here. And the profile of how, when you look at a game, you go, wow, that was a good, fast, attacking game.
Are we still, what's the danger, I suppose, with being on the same time as the NRL is going to be the whole ground share thing with the Knights, them chopping up the ground and our tempo football not going to be able to be as good as what it would be when we're the only people using it during those summer months. What do you think that the groundskeepers at Newcastle Stadium are going to be able to manage that effectively? Because it's been an issue, especially with the way the seasons were, with the changeover between our finals and teams playing at the beginning of the NRL season, chopping up the grounds and stuff. What sort of factor do you think that's going to be?
I don't think we'll have any issues at all, because we've got a new field. And then I'll go back to, I think it was at the Mariners game, the Waratahs played the night before, and it was pissing down the rain. And because people on the Central Coast got told don't travel today and the next day because it was that wet. And you would not even have known there had been a game on that part for the night before. The park played fantastic. So I don't ideally you want to have a Friday night and then a Sunday game, because then the staff don't need to turn it around in 24 hours. I don't think that'll be an issue for us. Going back to the old National League, when I used to play, the standard of the fields was pretty poor during the winter. But that's when you were playing in like basically state league stadiums, the little stadiums. They're not the full-time staff like they've got now. So I don't think our stadium will have an issue with that.
Okay.
And,
the other information that hasn't quite come out yet, we know that it's going to happen. Is there any? When are we going to find out some details about the new W League season? When's that likely to run? And we'll talk about the Women's World Cup in a sec. What's the current play with the W League?
Because all the focus has been on the A League, there's been no talk of the W League. There've been no discussions about not having the W League, just in case the budget was cut. It's never been put on the table, but the big focus was getting the A League up and going, which it is now. Now they've got the Melbourne teams in. They'll do the redraw tomorrow. I would say in the next few weeks, the women's game will start, the W Leagues will start getting looked at. And because the Europeans now are chucking a lot of money about as well. So a lot of those Matildas will, and obviously because the World Cup's coming up, the Olympics are coming up, there are more and more of them going to be going away for the W League, I think, the way the season's run. So the W League will be on the agenda very quick, and then, as you said, going into the World Cup, huge for Newcastle. Great for us. It's going to be great for Australia, and it's going to be great. The big thing is, it's great for the game, because, in my opinion, for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been negativity. Everybody's blaming everybody. Everybody's having a go, and I think now with the World Cup, okay, everybody said we wouldn't get any money for Fox, we got it. Then they said we wouldn't get a new TV deal, we got it. Then we got the World Cup, but then we got the A League. Okay, we've had a few hiccups getting Melbourne teams in. It's going to be a positive time coming forward for the next 2 or 3 years. You've got under 20s, under 23s doing World Cup qualifying later in the year. You've got the girls are going to go to the Olympics, and then the Matildas, I think Australia's #1 national team, and then you're going to have them in New Zealand, games here in New Zealand, which is just huge for football. It's not just Australia, it's just huge for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the anticipated benefits? Obviously, Newcastle's down as one of the host cities. You'd think that would be, for the Women's World Cup, you'd think that would be a pretty decent lock. What are you anticipating are going to be the benefits for Newcastle, not just for women's football, but for football in general, from getting the World Cup?
I think so. You've got all these people who sit in the fence. The kind of football fans.
Yeah,
I think that attraction. They're going to come along. You're going to have great crowds. They're going to come along and just get that taste, because usually, like me and my wife used to drive down to Wanderers games when we were at Parramatta Stadium Friday night. When I was the mayor of Gosford, and that, when we didn't have games on, and I wasn't at the Mariners, or even when I was at the Mariners, I would go down and watch a game, because the atmosphere, we wanted to go and sit in that atmosphere and enjoy a game of football. And I think we'll get a lot more football fans out of the World Cup, because they're going to come along and they're just going to enjoy what they see and being involved in a great atmosphere. Because you must admit, our games, when you go to a game of football and the crowd's into it, it's, in my opinion, a lot better than the other sports by a mile.
Yeah, absolutely. Brett Griffo on Twitter had a sort of an adjacent question to that. Have the Jets been lobbying or are planning to lobby for #2 Sportsground to be developed as a new home stadium for the Jets, or a second Newcastle stadium, especially off the back of Women's World Cup bid success for W League or the club in general? So maybe using #2 more for not necessarily having to try and fill Energy Australia Stadium every game. It might be an option to take a couple of games to #2. Obviously, the W League team have been there. Has that been looking at getting some more investment into that stadium to develop it a bit more, make it a bit more of a boutique stadium option?
Look, I don't disagree with him at all, because it's a great little tight stadium. The W League Council's been great. the last couple of years we've had the W League there and the youth there, and we want more games there for W League because we feel as though we can build those crowds up. And instead of having the double headers at the stadium, and most of the people go there to watch the men, they just get there early. Whereas when the W League stand alone, they go along. It's a great buzz there. But we keep working in with the council. Obviously, they've got a lot of commitments, but at the moment we're contracted into McDonald Jones Stadium, and it's one of the better stadiums, but it is a big stadium for us. And he's right. Like if we'd a capacity of 12, 14,000, it'd be it's a totally different atmosphere of the game. But that kind of stuff, we're not at the stage. We need to secure a new owner, a lot of things to look at before we start looking at that kind of stuff. But the council did get some funding available to maybe concrete, or they were looking at getting funding to concrete behind the goals and put the steps in. And then obviously once you get the steps in, council, they filled the stadium fully with chairs, because it was just the middle part, and now they've extended that out for a full grandstand. So the last I heard, they were trying to get funding for the both ends of that. And then obviously if you put in concrete steps, you can start putting chairs in there as well.
Yep, absolutely. Mike Scaife also asked a similar question on Facebook with regards to that. All right, so we've gone through talking about ownership. What else do we have? Plans with the current squad. So are there deals for
I have to tell you, this is for the guy, because he just tried to phone me and they said it was on a hookup with the fans. Tell them I'm coming to put a smile on their faces for a change.
Oh, the potential owner?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Plans with the squad. So obviously, with players' deals that are coming to an end at the end of the current season, is recruitment and re-signing, all that sort of stuff on hold until the season's finished? What's happening with the players that are due to run out of contract?
Everything's on hold now because we've got, obviously it came out with St James Donaghy, who I think will be a great signing for us. He signed a 3-year deal. We signed Lewis a few months ago, Lewis Italiano.
Yep.
Obviously Mossy's retired, and Kane Shepherd decided not to take up the option of the 3 months. And everybody else, it's all the players are kind of getting itchy, and out of respect, because in my past, when I was a coach or in administration, you always try to do it as early as possible so you weren't keeping boys hanging. But at the moment with the salary cap, we just don't know. So if they cut the salary cap, so instead of having 23 players, we'll have 20. So you'll cut down the numbers and rely on your scholarship boys and that. So it's definitely, that's why the clubs are wanting the collective bargaining agreement and then the budget and the grants given as quick as possible so we can actually look ahead. Because at the moment, we've spoke to a few players and the agents are telling them not to sign and the PFA's telling them not to sign because they don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Yep, absolutely.
So it's unfair on the players as well at the moment, but it's just how everything's landed this year.
Yeah, can't really do much about it. So a couple of people have asked about specific positions. So we're looking at signing another goalkeeper, another striker, et cetera, but all that sort of stuff's on hold.
We'll definitely be signing another goalkeeper, and that's nothing against young Noah, but it's just we need another goalkeeper. Yep. Lewis came in the back end of last year and did very well. But Mossy came in as a number 2 for Jack Duncan, and Jack Duncan did brilliant because he's an international goalkeeper, keeping him on his toes. So you need that competition for spots. Carl would like, I think, obviously Joe Ledley's just came back and he's a wee bit behind the boys in fitness, but Joe is keen to come here next year. Wes Houlihan, so Wes went back because his wife was pregnant, and he was very, very excited when he found out the new season was going to be December because his wife is due in October and the wee man's keen to come back next year or next season, I mean. So, striker-wise, Arroyo, he's off contract. Roy's under contract. Bernie Beanie's under contract for this 3 months. We're keen to keep Bernie. He's keen to stay, but again, he's just now waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yep. What about Arroyo? Is he keen to continue on? Matt Attard had a question about him.
Yeah, he's on loan at the moment, and we've just extended his loan. He's keen to come, keen to stay. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. You know, I think with his pace, he's got unbelievable pace, but I don't think he uses it well enough, and I don't think we use it well enough yet. If that makes sense.
Something that's cropped up in the overseas leagues that have gotten going again, we're seeing a lot of soft tissue injuries cropping up around the place with players that have been out of practice for a long time and getting back up to speed. What's being done with the coaching staff and the strength and conditioning to mitigate that with our guys?
So one thing that happened going back maybe 3-4 weeks ago is the A-League clubs weren't going to have any friendlies. So at the beginning, we couldn't play. We were going to play a couple of local teams before the NPL started in Newcastle, but because the bubble, we couldn't.
Yep.
So then 3 of the A-League teams couldn't play other opposition for A-League. So they said, well, if we all can't play friendly games, nobody plays. But then all the medical stuff came back from NRL and AFL about the amount of injuries that got picked up because the teams were basically training and not getting in match conditions.
Yep.
So the teams are now allowed 1 or 2 friendlies. We've played 2 internal games and we're playing the Wanderers on Wednesday. Some teams have had 2, some have had 1. Brisbane played a state league team the other week, last week, but that other team had to go through all the checks and all this so they could play the game. So, and that was purely for medical reasons to actually have the boys ready for match day rather than just training. So the work that they've been doing with Bryce and Nathan, the physio, is to get them as match prepared as possible. Like when Carl turned up yesterday, the session was a 2-hour session on the party yesterday, but it was a lot of tactical stuff. So now they've done the hard work, and now it's more tactical. And the game on Wednesday will be a reasonable indication because it's going to be really, the Mariners got beat 4-1 for Sydney on Friday afternoon. Wanderers drew with Wellington the other week. Mariners drew with Wellington 0-0, but then Wellington beat Wanderers 3-0 the other night, and then the Mariners got beat 4-1, although I think it was 2-1 after like 30 minutes.
Yep.
And it was the last 30 minutes. So some clubs, I think you'll be able to tell what players and what clubs have worked really hard in the stand down, because you couldn't tell the players what to do. You could suggest there's a training program.
Yep.
And because that was stuff with the PFA. Our boys on reasonable nick, and if they start the way they finish the end of the season, you know, if we can get 2 results in the first couple of weeks, you know, we're looking at opening the bottom level at the moment because our 2 home games are 7:30 kickoff, and we that will be about 4,500. 7:30 on a Sunday night's not ideal. So if we get 2 good results, those first 2 games, and other results go away, you know, we'll open the upper tier as well because we'll know how tickets are going, and we'll be opening them up to members because obviously the members have missed out. We've got 10,500 members, so it'll be first in, best dressed, and then obviously if we're going to get rid of those 4,000. We'll open up the upper tier.
Yeah.
Most games we get about 5,000 or 6,000 members there, but we don't play at 7:30 on a Sunday, and if we don't get results the first 2, who knows who'll turn up. So that's what we're looking at. And seeing them talking about tickets. The Mariners, our game against them, they're just over 4,000 capacity, and Sean, the CEO, reckons they'll have some available for us. We're not going to be doing the reciprocal thing because we've had 1 game each, and it's unfair to even expect that.
Yep.
Because their costs, FFA were going to cover all the costs of the empty stadiums when it first started, but now the clubs will have to it'll cost them the difference.
Yep.
So we'll be able to get tickets for the Mariners game. Our fans will be able to purchase tickets for the Mariners game. And Sydney, I spoke to Sydney, so they'll come back to us, because there's things such as that you don't think about. We get an allocation of 75 tickets for every away game. Are we still going to get that? Because Sydney can only get 4,000, I think, 200 into Jubilee. Yep. So we're still going to get that allocation. But we might be, because they've got 18,000 members, so their 4,000 they're going to get into a ballot. But we might get a small allocation of tickets to purchase as well for our fans. But definitely, I think the Mariners, the size of their crowds before the break, I think we'll get a fair few for the Mariners game.
And when do you think there might be details come out about what
next week? FFA have been telling us to hold on because they want it, because the draw was going to change.
Yep.
Clubs are itching to get the info out, and what we'll do, if we'll put ours out, and then that week before our game, we'll then maybe go to public if we've not filled. Yep. If we've not filled our allocation, we'll put it to general sale.
Yep.
So members the first drop, it's up to them, and then a few days before, if there are tickets left, and if the tickets were going decent, obviously if we were going to look like filling it and getting there, we would then just go, right, let's open up the top, and then we'll go to general public as well. So yeah, we want our members to be looked after first. And then obviously the non-members will get a chance to get tickets.
So you don't anticipate the hills will be open? It'll just be seated?
The stadium mentioned that. So I think the Knights are playing today. So this is really their first run. And I think there are maybe 7,500 or 8,000. That's including their corporates, because they're opening up corporates on both sides. I think they were looking at not doing the hills, just having them seated. And some of the members asked me on Facebook and Twitter, why will I not get my seat? Because I've said, you're not getting seating in your seat. And I went, well, there's actually a pandemic going on, and a thing we're meant to socially isolate. And
yeah,
when you're going to get 4,000, you're going to get put in a certain area or a certain seat, it's just going to be a lucky draw.
Yep. Okay. And what about families? Are they still going to have to? Are they going to be option of? Is it going to be individual seating, or are you going to be able to get a block if you're taking family and sit? Would there still be the requirement for the minimum distance with the family sitting together? How's that all going to work?
I think, and I don't know this. I never went to the meeting with the stadium plan, but there's going to be a certain amount there, and then in the row behind, so it's going to be staggered out. I don't exactly know that, but if you're not next to each other, you'll be close to each other.
Yep. Okay. So you'll be able to get a block of tickets rather than it all being spread all over the place.
Yeah, but I wouldn't think if there are going to be 10 of you going, you're not going to be sitting in a row with 10 people.
Yeah, exactly right. All right. Well, it was a bunch of people asking about the ticketing situation. So hopefully that's answered everybody's questions. Andy Wright on Facebook, can't wait to get out and see any live football. The Northern NPL resumes this week, and it looks like they will recommence after a few doubts. Any news on the resumption of play for the youth team?
Yep. A draw came out through the week for, I think, 12 games, 13 games in the Sydney comp, and we got put in the NPL 4, which we weren't happy about. But I spoke to Graham Arnold through the week, and Graham Arnold's put a submission to New South Wales Football that, because Sutherland, I think, dropped out the NPL 1, that Wanderers go up to NPL 1, and the Mariners go for Division 2 and us go to NPL 1. But we believe the Wanderers will go up. We believe, because they've got about between the two age groups for the national team, they've got about 15 players,
Yep.
So it gives them better. So Arnie's wanting these players to be playing because their qualifiers coming up. So there's a chance we could go to Division 2 for this season only. So the draw for Division NPL 1 and 2 has not been done yet. So it's been held up because they're looking at moving the teams up. So there could be a chance that we could go to NPL 2 for the season. And then if we're in there and we handle ourselves well, hopefully then we can push to stay in that division.
Yep, absolutely. Aidan Wilkinson asked on Facebook, there was a rumour on the Jet supporters page about a player called Kai Kamara, currently playing over in Vancouver. Is there any truth to that rumour of that player being looked at, or is that just something that someone's grabbed out of thin air?
I think that's a thin air one because Carol's never mentioned it, and obviously he would know the boy. Never mentioned it at all.
No worries. All right, so Todd Blackwell, the legend that is Todd Blackwell, asked, can you ask Lawrie if offering to wash the bootlaces or something similar will get him into Blue Tongue for the F3 Derby, please?
Well, tickets will be available, Todd, so you don't need to wash anything. Just turn up and purchase a ticket and you'll get in, big fella.
All right, we've talked about players being available for selection. If you had a magic wand, Jordan asked this question, Lawrie, if you had a magic wand and could change any one thing about the A-League, what would it be?
I think we have all the changes coming. If we had all boutique stadiums, if we had all boutique stadiums, 10 to 15,000 or even 20,000 for your victories and that, I think that atmosphere that it would generate would be different class. And to me, again, going back to the W League or the Women's World Cup, if you're going and you're enjoying that atmosphere, you're going to come back and back and back. And I think if we all had boutique stadiums, would be great for the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was sort of where that earlier question was going with regards to number 2 about moving to there and getting the 10 to 15,000 seat stadium. But yeah, we need to get the financial and ownership side of our club sorted first before we can get to anything with regards to that. Acerb Hearn on Facebook also asked, what advice would you give to someone who's keen to learn the business side of football? Obviously, you've been on both sides yourself. How have you found the changing from the operational side, and what do you think would? So
I've been fortunate since I started coaching at Parramatta, full-time coaching at Parramatta Power. I'd done the marketing manager's job as well, and then when I went to Northern Spirit, that was after all the cutbacks. So I did a lot of the admin, signing the players, dealing with agents. At the Mariners, I did it all. So I've been fortunate. I just grew into it. Is like getting work experience at a club and things. It's quite hard because you don't have a lot of staff. When you're actually trying to spend time with somebody, it's not actually fair because we occasionally get people in and you look at them half the time and they're doing nothing because that person that's looking after them is that busy doing something else. So it's getting involved. If you were involved with one of your local clubs and you were helping the committee and at your local club and doing stuff about the admin without having a full-time job or a job with them, I think that would be a great start to actually show you, because everybody's not made out for it. And I think if you're a player or a fan and you can do both because you've got the feel for the game, it helps, rather than somebody coming straight out of uni who's never been in a football game before and they just don't understand the game. If you've got a background in football as a player at any level and you can get involved in your local club or your local zone, if there were jobs coming available at a club, you would definitely look at somebody with a bit of experience, whether it is voluntarily or doing a part-time gig with a zone or even Northern New South Wales.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably the final question. You've been at training the last couple of days and seen how all the boys have been getting round. Who have you been impressed with? Who's been training really well? Are you looking at playing top or up front anytime soon? He scored a screamer the other day.
The screamer. What about his what? They were telling me he done about 32 32 kilometres an hour in the celebration.
Yeah, it's the fastest I've seen him run in years.
And the professionalism of the guy, he run right behind and then run straight back onto the field.
Yeah.
So
lucky we didn't concede after he went running around.
I watched the game. Me and the Griff were there on Wednesday watching the game, and by all reports, Fitzy's been flying. Johnny Kratrumbis has been flying. Stevie Gakovic has been doing well. Arroyo, he was a bit behind the pace because things, and obviously he doesn't speak to many people, but he basically locked himself away like a hermit when the virus was at its peak. So we actually started getting out to join some of the boys when they're doing their own little groups. So he's been a wee bit. Big Bernie's been looking really good. He actually, in the game the other day there, in the second, third, they played 3 minutes. They actually played like a number 10, and they actually, he looked quite tidy, but he's looking really in a good place as well. Bogues was back topper, they were all steady at bat, but the ones doing the fitness training and football training together, like Fitzy, Johnny, Stevie, they were well up there, but Bernie's definitely been doing well. Roy just keeps plugging away, and he's in the games. He scored the other day there. He bundled in his goal and does what Roy does, and so he's keen, enthusiastic. Although I know you've got a bit of facial hair, but Roy's grown. He's got a wee bit of length in the hair, and he's got a wee bit of facial stuff happening as well. So I'm going to have a word with Ellen and see what's going on there.
All right, just as a final question, obviously we've got 4 games to finish this season out. They're going to be thick and fast to try and get the season over and done with. With everything being up in the air as it's been, and our preparations being as good as anybody else's, I think everyone's pretty much on an even keel now, and it's a straight run to the finish. How, for the 4 games we've got, how do you think our chances are of finishing well and possibly sneaking into a thick spot to be able to qualify for the finals? What are your feelings around the positivity around the boys, and what do you think the chances are of being able to sneak into a final spot?
The dressing room's brilliant. There are a couple of trialist boys up there that have been up, and they've just said the dressing room, the boys as a team, same thing as Joe Ledley says when he left. He's never been, and even Wes, I saw in an article in the UK, said the same thing about the dressing room. So the boys are buzzing. To get in that top 6, you need to win 3 of the games and draw 1, I think. So if we get a result against Sydney that first game, anything can happen. But the way we finished, I think out of the last 8 games, if you'd have started the league then, we'd have been sitting second in the table. So you want to try and maintain some of that, because then if we finish the season well, you take that into December, you take that into the members, and obviously Carroll's come in, he's made a difference, and you get that enthusiasm. And so I think the Sydney game's the big one. So see who prepares best. When they played the Mariners the other day, they had their full team out the first half. And the Mariners apparently gave them first 20 minutes, it was an even match, and the Mariners hit the post and had one cleared off the line. And then the usual, you play against a team like Sydney, it's bang, bang. It was 2-1 at half time, and then it opened up near the end. So if we start well, we're going to give it a shake. If we don't get that result in Sydney away, it's a hard game in any day. You want to give the fans something to look forward to next year.
Yep, absolutely. And we're talking about a team who's top of the table and gunning for another premiership. So it's going to be difficult, but we look forward to the A-League finally getting back underway and being able to watch some live football on TV. Lawrie, we really appreciate your time. We really appreciate your answers. We really thank you for joining us, and we will hopefully be able to get on with football and get back to normalcy. So, mate, really appreciate you.
And we'll get an updated draw tomorrow. So in the media tomorrow, the reschedule. Hopefully, we don't change too much, but the fans will be able to get that tomorrow. Hopefully.
Right. Fingers crossed. All right, Lawrie, thanks very much for joining us, mate. Have a good rest of your weekend.
All right, Grant. All right, pal.